On the terrace of the glass penthouse, Aiden Rose held a glass of ice water in his hand. He had long since stopped drinking champagne to keep his head clear. The moon hung over the Hudson. The hall shimmered with gold. The partners laughed as if the sky were for sale. At that moment, the phone shuddered, and the world, accustomed to obeying his orders, changed polarity. The notification: SEC has opened an investigation into ArcLight Capital. Suspicion of falsification of accounting records. Sources: internal whistleblower. Aiden smiled at first, his usual tired smile. Smoke without fire, competitive games. But his fingers treacherously clenched tighter because in the text itself was a name: whistleblower. Company co-founder, Martin Cade. The same Martin with whom they had shared a laptop in a cheap co-working space 10 years ago. The same one who had brought him coffee when Aiden spent his nights rewriting code for the fund. "This is slander," he said aloud, as if to someone in particular, although only the PR consultant was standing next to him. "Let's say we are cooperating and everything is transparent," she replied, reading the tape. "But we need to immediately remove any mention of the fourth fund's profitability from the website and talk to the board." Aiden nodded, but a memory flashed through his head. The promise of a double cushion to investors, the aggressive model that Martin had asked to smooth out in presentations. He had once said, "We don't lie, we show the future." And now this future came from someone else's mouth, like a cold blade. The phone rang again. This time it was his sister. "Aiden, the news is on every channel. Are you safe?" "Of course," he answered automatically, looking at his own reflection in the black glass. "They just don't understand our strategy." Some in the room were already laughing softly. Some were looking away. When he finally entered the small conference room, the board of directors was sitting straight, like a jury. Martin was gone. His letter hung on the screen. "Given the ethical differences and ignored warnings, I will cooperate with the regulator." Every word hit like a hammer. "This is treason," Aiden whispered. "And a pretext. He knows we were balancing on a line, but not crossing it." "The law doesn't read between the lines," the chairman of the board replied calmly. "We want to temporarily remove you from operational decisions. Voluntarily. While we're checking." The artificial light that had been making everyone's faces velvety blurred into spots. Aiden stood up. "Voluntarily. After the tens of billions I've invested in this company? After I've sacrificed my own nights so that investors can get a morning? It's for your own good," PR said softly. "For your reputation." He opened the door to the terrace and stared at the thousands of windows on the other side, flickering like someone else's plans. Something heavy flared up in his chest. Not fear, but resentment that smelled of metal. The phone rang again. "Raid on ArcLight headquarters tomorrow at 6 o'clock. He turned down the volume, put the device on the table, and for the first time in years allowed himself the weakness of pressing his fingers to his eyes to keep a tear from betraying him here, in front of their golden world. "If this is war," he said into the darkness in a determined, foreign voice, "then I will not back down." And the city responded to him with a silence that sounded louder than any ovation. The morning light cut through the office like a surgical knife. People in dark suits and emotionless faces moved through the corridors of ArcLight, evidence stickers plastered on the server cabinets like invisible sentences. Aiden walked beside the lawyer, trying to breathe evenly. The partners' phones were silent. The day before yesterday, they had sworn allegiance, and today they had suddenly left for business trips. The news flashed on the lobby screen. From guru to sinner, the end of the Aiden Rose era. Reputation always knew which way to fall. "This is turning into a public execution," he whispered to the lawyer. "Publicity is their weapon," the lawyer replied. "Yours is the documents. If there was no outright falsification in the model, we will stand our ground. Or we will come to an agreement." Before lunch, the custodian bank called. The fund's accounts were frozen. After lunch, the family office of a large pension fund. Investor exit immediately. By evening, Martin had given an interview so carefully calibrated that it seemed he had rehearsed it for years. "I couldn't keep quiet any longer. We were inflating expectations, we were hiding risks. I asked them to stop." The announcer nodded, the country nodded with her. And only one sentence pierced Aiden's lungs. He's a sales genius, but the truth has always been uncomfortable for him. That evening, his mother called. Her voice, older than a month ago, was gentle and firm. Son, I'm not asking if you're guilty or not. I'm asking if you can still hear yourself. I only heard noise, he admitted. Nothing else. Noises die down. Words remain. Be human. When the call ended, there was a knock on the door. Lana, his ex, was standing on the threshold. Her smile was noble and indifferent, like that of people who have learned to protect themselves. I came to pick up my things. And to sign the last papers. It's not about the news, she said, and lowered her eyes. I'm just tired of being the story you write for other people's eyes. I always wrote for us, he replied, but the words fell between them and broke. She left, taking a few boxes and the silence that now belonged only to him. The board officially suspended him the next day. Private portfolio stocks were depreciating before his eyes. Investors were demanding buyouts. Government lawyers showed charts that looked like stairs to nowhere. In the hallway, someone whispered, "The end." He stopped at a stand with the first ArcLight logo, curvy letters drawn in marker on the first pitches. The fingerprint of youth. You know that's not true, he said to the void. We took risks, but we didn't steal. The void didn't answer. That evening he returned to the penthouse, but the panoramic windows reflected only a tired man without a shadow of his own city. He opened his laptop and saw the last thing, a letter from Martin. 3 sentences. You always thought the world was flexible. People are flexible, and they break. I couldn't be another one. Aiden rolled up the lid and sank to the floor. There was no more money, no confidence, no love, no laughter from his advisors. Only the fact, ripe as thunder. He had lost everything, not understanding what game he was playing. And there, on the cold floor, he admitted for the first time. The galaxy he was building was not what it seemed. He left the penthouse at night, the city humming with air conditioning and lonely taxis. He got behind the wheel of an old Mustang that had been parked in the underground garage since the days when the ArcLight was a dream on a notebook. The engine rumbled like a voice from the past, and Aiden drove to where no one expected him. To a little diner in Brooklyn Heights where he had washed cups at 20, and a woman named May had taught him how to make coffee, as if it were a prayer. May met him with the same look that always had order and compassion in it. You've lost weight, she said, setting a black coffee in front of him. And you stopped breathing. Try again. I broke, May. People don't break. They bend to take a different angle later. She nodded to the man in the corner, an elderly black accountant named Sol, who had worked for about a decade at a charitable foundation where ArcLight had once channeled grants. He wanted to talk to you, May said quietly. He says he has papers that smell. Sol opened a worn folder. On the table appeared copies of checks, emails, strange agreements between ArcLight subsidiaries and private firms linked to Martin. I don't like heroic speeches, Sol said. I like numbers. Here they are. Risk transfers, hidden feeds, decommitments from consolidated accounts. Smart. Almost elegant. And all of this had started to happen more frequently in the year before he went to press. You're saying that the whistleblower set a trap? I'm saying that the world is more complicated than the headlines, and that the truth is rarely beneficial to one person. Aiden flipped through the pages, each document warming his fingers like a sedition. The puzzle was coming together. The smoothing he had allowed, blinded by his growth, turned out to be a corridor where Martin had set up mirrors so that Aiden's every move would look wrong. May set down a new cup. If you go into this, she said, you'll go without any guarantees. You have no money left. No influence either. All that will remain are words and math. I want something more than money, he replied, surprised at himself for saying that. I want to breathe. That night he wrote a letter to people he had long forgotten. To the young analysts laid off due to downsizing. To the old system administrator who had once asked him not to touch the backups. Only one responded, a quiet guy named Rihi, who lived in New Jersey with his mother. I have copies of the logs, he wrote. I didn't ask permission to keep them. Think I'm a fool. But they show who cleaned up what. When they met at a cheap motel, Rihi handed him the flash drive like a meteorite fragment. I don't know if it'll make any difference, he whispered. But I couldn't watch them make us all bad guys. Thanks, Aiden said. And for the first time in months, he felt a tiny light flicker in the void. At dawn, sitting in May's diner, he ran the logs, checked them against Saul's documents, and the picture clicked into place. The big reveal. Martin wasn't exposing the truth. He was constructing it. The altered risk scenarios, the deferred later warnings in the correspondence, the distorted metrics that had put his personal funds in the black when Arclight was drowning. Aiden clenched his fists. He was no longer the king of the highway, but he had gained something no less rare: clarity. If I go out into the world with this, he told May, I'll be torn apart. And if I don't, you'll be torn apart, she replied. The truth is not medicine. It's light. It burns. And he accepted the burn. The press room in Midtown Manhattan resembled a hot stage. Cameras clicked, microphones writhed like snakes. Aiden emerged without a stylist and without a script. Only with Soul's folder, Rihi's flash drive, and a heart that beat not with fear, but with determination. My name is Aiden Rose, he began. I made mistakes. I let growth become a god. I embellished presentations when I should have explained the risks in simple terms. That's my responsibility, and I'll take it. The camera noise died down. But there's something the country needs to know, he continued, and graphs, timestamps, and correspondence flew onto the screen behind him. Our informant, Mr. Cade, built a mirror maze. Here are the contracts under which the risks were transferred to the funds he controlled. Here are the log cleanups and the out-of-sync reports. Here are the money orders for the gasket companies. I'm no saint, but I'm not the devil he's selling. Why are you only bringing this up now? The reporter shouted. Because I haven't been talking to the right people. Today I'm talking to the people who have to make the decisions. He announced that he was handing over all the files to regulators and that the rest of his personal capital would go to compensate investors and a scholarship fund for laid-off employees. I'll lose almost everything, he said, but I'll get my voice back. The hearing took place that evening at dinner. The courtroom smelled of paper and fatigue. Martin arrived in a dark suit, with the same smile of a man who has learned the roles of others. You're playing the Messiah, Aiden, he whispered in the hallway. But I'm writing this drama. Then let's not spoil the ending, Aiden replied. Let the math speak. On the witness stand, Saul, calm as a metonym for order. Then Rihi, trembling but holding his own. During cross-examination, Martin tried to break their narratives, but the chain of evidence proved stronger than their intonations. When they showed him the letters from his personal email, where he wrote about adjustments for the right press signal, the courtroom fell silent. It's taken out of context, Martin said. Maybe, the judge said dryly. But the sum of the context paints a picture. After a break, Aiden asked to speak. I'm not asking for mercy, he said. I'm asking for precision. If the punishment is fair, let it be fair. If the eye is to see everyone, not just one. It was all or nothing. He didn't offer deals. He didn't bargain. He didn't lick the wounds. He just opened them. He stood not by force, but by stubbornness, by a love of truth that had finally ceased to be a concept and became action. When the judge announced that the proceedings against him were being reduced to administrative fines and supervision, and that a criminal case was being opened against Martin, the audience did not applaud. It was not a movie. But the air felt lighter. Aiden went outside, where a light rain was making the city fair. He turned his face to the sky, as if signing a new agreement, without guarantees, but with himself. 6 months had passed. In the corner of a former printing shop, a small incubator opened for boys and girls who couldn't speak the language of investor decks, but who could listen to reality. A sign hung on the wall. Arclight is about light, not arcs. They laughed when they read it, but they stayed. Aiden wore the same dark jacket and brewed coffee, having learned from May, who sometimes came and scolded him for having too tart beans. Soul helped build the ethics of financial models. Rihi taught him how to make backups in a way that would appease even the devil. One evening, Lana came in. She walked silently for a long time between the tables where the children of the future were putting together their first presentations. Not for sale, but for meaning. You look simpler, she said finally. It's a new style, he smiled. Don't pretend to be God. Do you regret it? About what? About money? Sometimes. About power? Rarely. About not hearing myself for so long? Always. They went out onto the roof. The sky was clear, and the stars shone honestly like scars. You know, Aiden said. I thought for a long time that wealth was the answer. Then I believed that truth was a sword. Now I understand. It's a pulse. If you muffle it, you're dead with a bank account. If you hear it, you're alive, even if you pay fines. And the past? Can it be bought back? Lana asked. No, he answered after a pause. The past is not for sale, but you can pay off your debts honestly. and not take out new ones on credit in your own conscience. He didn't promise her any returns, and she didn't ask for any. They just stood there under the stars, the city humming below, no longer like a hypocrite, but like an old friend who had learned to be silent where he had once shouted. The next day, Aiden returned to class and wrote on the board, "Can you be rich and honest?" Below it, 2 more sentences. Which is more important, truth or success? Can you redeem the past? The students argued, wrote formulas, stories, code. No correct answer ever emerged. As evening fell over the city, he made coffee and sat down opposite the empty chair. "Thank you," he said quietly to someone long gone, a young man with a notebook who had once washed cups and believed that the world would become flexible. "You were wrong, but without your mistake, I would not be here." And it seems that somewhere beyond the edge of light, where the stars are fading, there was a brief blink, the kind that proves nothing but allows life to go on. He stood up, wiped the board, and left only one word that contained all the answers and all the losses: breathe.